Hello and welcome back to the Ghost of Alcantra. Last time we had the big reveal from Alexandria, but this time we're going back to Victor's timeline. Let's see if we can find out more about him. June 10th, 1997. To say that my nightmare had disturbed me would be an understatement. It took me a whole day to recover to the point where I could do things again, because I couldn't shake the idea that there was something deeply wrong with me. Detective Storm did her best to comfort and reassure me. She rationalized that the nightmare was probably caused by the stress of my situation. She told me messages like, "Her blood is on your hands, it's your fault, and remember what you've done," would rattle anyone. I wasn't convinced. She didn't understand how real it all was, how certain I was that I was responsible for some woman's death. A dream isn't evidence of a crime in a court of law, but it was evidence enough for me. My desire to regain my memories grew so that I could confront myself head-on, rather than let this phantom guilt torment me. The days passed. Detective Storm didn't push anything regarding the investigation on me. In fact, she didn't push anything on me. She left me to my own devices and said she would call on me when she thought I could be helpful. I thought she expected more out of me. It struck me as negligent to leave a potential suspect unattended. Yeah, kind of. After enough time lounging around Detective Storm's place doing nothing but watching TV, I decided to take matters into my own hands. Earlier, Detective Storm had given me a collection of maps and brochures about Alcantra so that I could get myself acquainted with the town. I decided to put those to use. The weird thing was that when I looked over the maps, I found that I already knew the information. My suspicion that I knew Alcantra was confirmed. The canal separating Alcantra from the neighboring town Hamatra, the downtown area, the neighborhoods, I was familiar with all of it. The brochures detailing the restaurants and businesses had some things I wasn't familiar with, but I knew a lot of the info in there as well. My goal was to go out and see if I could learn anything more about myself and to visit the town elder, this Elaine Weatherton. Supposedly, she could tell me about the Ghost of Alcantra. I called Detective Storm at her workplace to let her know I was going out. Very responsible. She just berated me for bothering a working woman. Good to know she cared. I went out and started exploring the business district. Afterwards, I made my way towards downtown and the canal. I had no trouble getting around. I wasn't just acquainted with Alcantra, I was intimately familiar with it. Everything was where it was supposed to be. The streets were as crowded as they were supposed to be. It felt like my previous self knew this town so well that they might have run it. Walking around Alcantra made me feel powerful and in control. The sentiment of familiarity couldn't be shared for the townspeople, though. I walked by many and didn't recognize a single person. Nobody seemed to recognize me either. I tried to talk with a couple, but I found that my attention was unwanted. It wasn't as bad as the near-inquisition levels of suspicion I had faced earlier, but I found that there was something that marked me as an outsider to these people, and that marking branded me as suspicious. That's still strange to me, like if we know the place so well, then why would the people not know us? Especially the older ones, because yeah, maybe we've been away for some time, but that long? That people would forget about us in a small town like this? Oh, very strange. And supposedly we don't look like, I don't know, our face is not completely disfigured or something, is what I'm saying. So, I don't know, still no idea about him. It bothered me because I only felt like an outsider to the people themselves. Alcantra itself breathed familiarity to me. So why did no one know me? In any case, it was hard to gather information about Alcantra when no one would give me the time of day. The people I spoke with either ignored me or gave me curt replies with moody glares. News traveled fast in small towns. I thought that small Midwestern towns were known for their hospitality. I guess that wasn't always the case. There was something else that had been bothering me. I felt like something was missing about Alcantra. Yes, missing was the right word. The physical locations, the names, all that was familiar. But there was something noteworthy about Alcantra, and nobody had brought it up, and it didn't show up on the map. I think it was related to the south side of town. I didn't remember why, but I had a feeling. I decided I would explore the south side of town more carefully. Nothing struck me as unusual there. I started making my way west, which would lead me to the business district. There, I found what I was looking for. Or rather, I didn't find what I was looking for. Because on the hill that overlooks the business district, there stands a mansion surrounded by forests with a path that would lead to some cliffs near it. I saw the forests, the hills, the paths, and the cliffs, but there was no mention. This wasn't just a feeling, I remembered this. How could you mention Alcantra without the Thorn family? Because what was missing was the Thorn mansion that had once stood atop that hill, looking down on the whole town. Very interesting. The name Thorn. Something about that name bothered me. It was so familiar to me that it hurt. Looking at the spot where the absent mansion should be made, where the absent mansion should be, made me feel like I had lost yet another part of my identity that would never be recovered. I mean, when he decided on the name Victor, he did say V, and I think I mentioned this before, that like the only V name we have so far was Blade, who was from the Thorn family. But then again, he was well known in the town. So can it be him? I ran into the Walmart. I knew most of the locals were unwilling to talk with me, but there had to be someone in Walmart who was willing to talk. Yet not one. No one, not a single person I talked to, knew who the Thorns were. What? After only 10 years? Because it is 10 years between the two timelines we're visiting. And if they were so influential back then, how can they not be known after 10 years anymore, unless we're talking to only very young people? How could this be? Was I remembering incorrectly? Nobody knew the Thorns or remembered there being a mention there. I, an amnesiac, alone knew they had been here. This Elaine Weatherton, she supposedly knew everything about Alcantra. I'd go to her. If she didn't know who the Thorns were, then I was just crazy. I took a glance at the map Detective Storm had given me. Elaine Weatherton's address was circled in bright red marker. Oh my gosh, all the cats. But yeah, that's very curious. Is it not only a different time? Or does no one want to talk about them? I rushed across town to Elaine Weatherton's place. It wasn't hard to find it. Her house had Halloween decorations plastered all around it, despite it being June. I ignored them. Her craziness was almost assuredly no match for mine, the way things were going. I knocked on the door. A minute later, Elaine Weatherton appeared. Hi, may I help you? There was no way to explain my situation without sounding like I had lost it, but I had to try. Sorry, I know this is going to sound really weird, but I'm an amnesiac staying with Detective Storm right now. I was recently in a motorcycle accident and lost quite a lot of memories. I go by Victor currently. She looked at me like I was crazy. That was understandable, because I probably was. I mean, define crazy, come on. I wanted to know more about Alcantra. Some of my memories have been returning, and I've also heard some things I'm curious about. Detective Storm told me that you would be the best person to ask. And, so yeah, here I am. I was hoping you might be able to answer some questions. That sounded stupider than I could have imagined. Who was going to let a strange amnesiac into their home with that story? I mean, you can talk on the porch. Thankfully, Elaine Weatherton must have been very strange herself. Her face noticeably brightened when I mentioned answering questions about Alcantra. Oh sure, Detective Storm sent you. No problem, no problem. Please come in. Detective Storm had told me she was a professor. Her place looked the part. Bookshelves and papers were strewn all over the place, indicating that cleaning was always secondary to research. Her mannerisms and behavior struck me as vaguely familiar, but I couldn't quite put my finger on it. She cleared up her table, offered me a cup of coffee, and then sat down beaming. I guess she was excited to talk about Alcantra. So, what did you want to ask me? So this might be a weird question, but the hill overlooking the business district, did there used to be a mansion on that hill? Yep, there sure was. So I wasn't crazy? Then why did it seem like no one remembered it? You see, I thought so. I'm getting my memories back slowly and remembered that a family called the Thorns used to live in that mansion. I think they were important and powerful. Yep, that's right. The Thorns used to live there. They founded this town and basically ran it. She gave me a smile. It was a good idea to come see me. You see, nobody but me would know the Thorns used to run Alcantra. What? I mean, I obviously knew that, so others must have known as well. What do you mean? Well, as the storyteller of Alcantra, it's my role to know these things. No, I mean, why wouldn't anyone else know? She raised an eyebrow at me. Why would they? Why would they? I mean, they ran this town. You just said they founded it. Of course people would have to know who they were. She just laughed at my response. Oh right, I guess you wouldn't know. You see, nobody in Alcantra now was around when the Thorns were. They're all newcomers. That's why you have to That's why you have to come see me to learn about Alcantra. That's my job. I gave her a blank look in response. What could I even say to that? That wasn't possible. You can't replace a whole town. No, I'm sorry, but that's just not possible. That's crazy. Nobody remembers the Thorns or the Thorn Mansion. Everybody is new? What, did everyone just move and get replaced? Nobody moved, but I guess you could say they got replaced. She said these stupid things with a stupid smile on her face. I slumped my shoulders in disappointment. What? It's very cryptic. Ultimately, she was no different than all the other hostile townspeople. She just had a more creative way of showing it. I guess, in a way. I'm already thinking of various ways why the people from before are not here anymore. But even so, that's the thing, even if this is all new people, all newcomers, people who moved here, wouldn't someone talk to Elaine and find out about the Thorns? I mean, I guess we haven't talked to everybody in town, maybe someone really does know, but oh boy. You know, you could have just told me you didn't want to talk. But I do want to talk. Right. Like I was going to believe anything from her. What a ridiculous story. I still wanted to ask about the ghost story, but who knows what she'd tell me. I guess it was worth a shot. Yes, well, thanks for answering. Anyway, the other thing I wanted to ask about was the Ghost of Alcantra. Detective Storm had told me that the townspeople have been talking about the murders in relation to this Ghost of Alcantra. Do you know anything about it? Her face darkened at the mention of the Ghost of Alcantra. The Ghost of Alcantra is a town legend. It's a dark story. The change in her mood was palpable. She had just fed me a bunch of bullshit, but I got the feeling that the Ghost of Alcantra was something the locals did not joke about. Could you tell me about the legend? Like I said, it's a dark story. Do you think you can handle it? She looked dead serious when she asked. I thought back to my nightmare and laughed internally. There was no story that would be horrible enough to compare to that. I mean, I can think of a few, but oh well. I can handle it. She nodded gravely. Very well. The legend goes that there was a man in love with a woman named Alcantra. Unfortunately, this man loved Alcantra too much. His love ended up killing her. The man was devastated by her death. So devastated, he completely lost the will to live. Alcantra took pity on the man from the afterlife. She came to him as a ghost. She told him of a ritual that could bring her back to life. This ritual consisted of the murder of 3 women. One woman was to be sacrificed to return Alcantra's body. One woman was to be sacrificed to return Alcantra's mind. And the last was to be sacrificed to return Alcantra's soul. The man was so in love with Alcantra that he followed the steps of the ritual with no hesitation. He killed 3 women, and he offered each in return for his beloved Alcantra. When he had finished, Alcantra did indeed return to him. But the man was never the same after that, despite the reunion. For each woman he killed, he lost a part of himself. By the time Alcantra came back to him, he was no longer the same person. He had sacrificed his own soul to be with her again. However, he didn't care. Any suffering was worth seeing her again. She finished telling the story. Something struck me as off about the whole thing. I knew that Alcantra had a town legend, but this wasn't it. This was wrong. This was just a normal ghost story, devoid of any real message. No. The legend of Alcantra, it was a story of hope, of love. It was about how Alcantra convinced the town founder Alistair Thorne to live, to move on from her death. This wasn't the right Ghost of Alcantra story. Miss Weatherton must be trying to make fun of me again. Nice try, but like I said, my memory has been coming back slowly. I know that the legend of Alcantra is different. It's about Alistair Thorne being devastated by the death of his wife Alcantra, but her ghost convincing him in the afterlife to live. I don't know what the ghost story you're talking about is. She just laughed at me. Oh yeah, there is that story. Well, who says there can't be 2 legends? Alcantra was murdered, you know. They never talk about that much in the history of the Thorne family, but that's why Alistair was so devastated. Who knows what really happened? They both make great stories anyway. However, the story the townspeople are talking about is the one I just told you. And why is that? Because they don't think the legend is a mere fable. They think it's a guideline, a prophecy of what's about to happen. They think this recent murder is the first in a series of 3, that someone is trying to resurrect their own Alcantra. That's crazy. Is it? People believe some crazy things when they're in love. Is it all that strange to believe that someone would kill in hopes that their beloved would return? So the townspeople think the Ghost of Alcantra is still going around haunting people by telling them weird killing rituals to bring her back to life? Oh goodness, no. I see you're confused. I said their own Alcantra. You're thinking of the Ghost of Alcantra as in the Ghost of Alcantra herself. Of course I'm not talking about her. But I can see why you'd be confused. Yeah, that is confusing. Alcantra moved on forever ago. She has no reason to be a ghost now. We're talking about the Ghost of Alcantra as in Alcantra, the town. We're talking about the ghost that is haunting the town of Alcantra now. She looked at me like I was an amusing fellow. I got the feeling that she'd been truthful about this ghost story, but that she was still mocking me. At this point, yeah, a little. Silly to think of the Ghost of Alcantra as in Alcantra herself. What would that have to do with you, anyway? She died more than 100 years ago. Have to do with me? What do you mean? Of course this has to do with you. This whole thing does. She looked at me like I was crazy again, and this time I really felt I was. I had no idea what she was talking about. You're telling me you don't realize? I mean, that's why we're here, that's what we're trying to find out. Realize what? Oh goodness, we really don't. That's a shame. She looked a little angry now, like we had both been playing games, but now I had decided to waste her time. Of course, this is all for you. I waited for you to visit so I could say this because you made me do this. Why can't you see that? How much longer can you delude yourself? Do you think you can keep running? The murders, the story of the Ghost of Alcantra, this whole situation is for you. She was just trying to scare me. She must have been. It was a mistake to come here. She was just like the other townspeople. Even so, that look on her face, it was so genuinely angry. My ignorance really did make her furious. Her treatment of me sparked my own fury. I came here for answers, and I received this in turn. For once, be honest with me. Tell me about the thorns. What happened to them? Why aren't they here? She just glared at me. You already know what happened to them. No, I don't. Don't lie to yourself. Yes, you do. I don't. I roared at her, but my anger came from a place of fear rather than genuine rage. I was afraid that what she said was true. She held her ground in front of my display. I didn't lie to you. Nobody in this town can tell you about the thorns or what happened to them. Only the people you allow to know will know what happened to the thorns. What? For now, those are myself, because I am the storyteller and it is my role to know. And you. Maybe you'll allow Detective Storm to know. Eventually, you'll stop running away from yourself. And when that happens, I let someone else take over as the storyteller. She let me stand there stunned. I had come here for answers. I received only riddles. Was the whole town in on playing a trick on me? What did I know? What had I done? Did everyone know but me? Why wouldn't anyone tell me? She pointed me towards the door. I know you won't come here again for a long time because you're too scared to face the truth. But until next time, I wish you well. Remember what I've told you. Still in a state of shock, I left Elaine Weatherton's house, hoping that I had been tricked, frightened that I had been told the truth. The only thing clear to me now was that it was looking more and more likely that I was crazy, which was not the sort of clarity I had hoped to gain. Yet that didn't help us much at all. What does she mean we know what happened to the Thorns? And I mean, if we're going there saying like, okay, we have amnesia, like, hello, maybe we did know, but we don't right now. That went completely differently from what I could have imagined. I rushed back to Detective Storm's home, ignoring the wonderful evening air, choosing instead to bask in my anxieties. I was a hypocrite. I was like the moon? Fuck that. I needed someone. I was running to Detective Storm, hoping that she might say something, anything to reassure me. What did I want her to say? That I wasn't crazy? That I was a good person? I doubted either of those things were true. Unfortunately, my ability to communicate had degraded quite a bit after my meeting with Elaine Weatherton. I wasn't 5 seconds into Detective Storm's house before I was yelling at her while she lounged on a couch reading a newspaper. What's going on with me, with these murders, with this whole town? She looked up at me irritated and put her newspaper down. Can't a girl get any time to herself these days? Finally get back from work, start to relax, and then you start throwing another fit. Well, your Elaine Weatherton did her best to convince me I'm nuts. I think it's fair for me to throw a fit. She just gave a big sigh, resigning herself to dealing with me. I guess I just better get used to it. That made me feel bad, but I explained what Elaine Weatherton had told me. I told her how I was gradually starting to remember things, the Ghost of Alcantra story Elaine Weatherton had told me, and the weird stuff about the Thorns. Do you know who the Thorns are? Well, know is a strong word, but yes, I've heard that the Thorns used to be quite the influence in Alcantra. There was another. Maybe I wasn't crazy. Though Elaine Weatherton did say Detective Storm would know if I let her. The hell was that supposed to mean? But Elaine told me... Listen, just calm down, Victor. I can probably explain this one. I let Elaine know ahead of time you were planning on coming. She probably heard the rumors about you from other townsfolk and wanted to mess with you. The people here can have a nasty, mean streak. But do you really think it's possible that the whole town left and a whole new group of people came? Of course not. Well, there you go. Why would she mess with me like that? And how come everybody I asked didn't remember the Thorns? She messed with you because people are frightened of you. A visitor getting amnesia right as a murder happens. The town has always been superstitious, but everyone's especially on edge now. As for the Thorns, you probably just got unlucky with the people you asked. I suspect if you asked again, you'd get luckier. And the story of the Ghost of Alcantra? Oh, that one is probably true. Matches what people have told me. I knew I sounded like a paranoid lunatic, and I was grateful that Detective Storm was so patient in dealing with me. She was being motherly, as weird as that sounded. Yeah, didn't expect that from her. And okay, then Victor isn't just, paranoid with thinking that Elaine played tricks on us. If she's really messing with us, then that really was not helpful at all. Thank you very much. She only adopted her mocking self when she knew I could handle it. Otherwise, she tried to keep me from falling apart. Then the Thorns? Do you know what happened to them? She shook her head. Sorry, just knew there used to be the bosses around here. They were long gone by the time I got here. Nobody told me anything, and I never asked. I never worry about the past. What kind of detective was she? It seemed straight up incompetent to not know about the past leaders of this town. I must have looked disappointed because Detective Storm immediately tried to comfort me. Sorry, Victor. Was hoping Elaine could clear things up for you. Seems like she just rattled you even more. No, it's not your fault. Thanks for listening. It's just, I thought I was going crazy. Detective Storm patted the other end of the couch, gesturing for me to sit down. We're all a little crazy, and you've got a much better excuse than most. Just chill out for now. Do what all the sensible people do. Sleep in, eat chips, and watch movies. Is that medically sound advice? Hell if I know. I laughed. Yeah, that does sound better than what I've been doing. I should probably just avoid the townsfolk. But didn't you want me to help with the investigation? Aren't I supposed to be your key or whatever? I still think that. Actually, I wanted to talk about that, but we can save that for later. Don't want to be breaking any news to you while you're fragile like this. Fragile? I guess that's true. Anything that implicated myself in previous crimes made me feel like I was going to break, despite my previous bravado about facing who I was. Fair. Be honest with me. Are you just telling me things I want to hear? To my surprise, she nodded. I sure am. Can't have my key investigative piece falling apart. I laughed again. I was alone, but perhaps Detective Storm could be considered my ally. She wanted to use me, but that had its benefits. She wouldn't discard me until I had fulfilled my purpose. She gestured at a couple of VHS tapes. Now, how about we hold off detective talk until after you've calmed down some? Sure. You know, I haven't watched a movie since losing my memories. Just watched some crappy TV shows. Figures. What are we watching? I was planning on watching The Crucible since it's pretty new, but I'm guessing you're not gonna want to watch witch hunting right now. Oh, bring it on. I can handle it. Surely I could handle The Crucible. My situation wasn't anything like the Salem witch trials. We ended up watching the movie that evening. Detective Storm made for an interesting movie partner. She talked throughout the whole thing and criticized the investigative process of the characters. Over-explaining everything while watching a movie does sound horrible, especially on the first watch. Unless it's a bad movie, you know. What fucking dumbasses. That's one of the major points of the story. It's supposed to show mob... Shut up, Victor. Complaining is my favorite part. It turned out to be a relaxing experience. I could only laugh as Detective Storm shouted at Elizabeth to dump his bum ass, while thinking that my situation wasn't so bad. Sure, I didn't have any memories about myself, but at least the extent of my witch hunt so far was pretty petty meanness. It could have been worse. Could have been better, though. The movie ended, and that must have indicated something for Detective Storm, because she immediately stopped complaining about the characters, as if a switch had been flipped. The mood shifted. Detective Storm didn't say anything as she put the VHS tape back into its case. Suddenly, it felt like she was all business. I guess the purpose of the movie was to calm me down. There was a predictability to Detective Storm. She did things as I needed them to happen, but she was going to want something in return. That was fair. Hard to clear your name as an amnesiac, huh, Victor? I saw where she was going with this. Yes, it would be hard for me to confess to anything without remembering what I was confessing to. She nodded. Not like John Proctor's situation, then. Definitely not like John Proctor. But Victor, there is something similar between you and John Proctor. There's something your doctor, the townspeople, Elaine Weatherton, and myself are all right about. You can't run away from yourself. This again. I knew that, but what did they want me to do about it? Yes, I know my amnesia is probably self-induced, but it's not like I can just force myself to remember. I I know it would benefit everyone if I could remember who I was and what I did and how I'm involved in all this, but I just can't make that happen. Detective Storm nodded again. I know you can't just make it happen. I just wanted to remind you. Elaine is right about this. I am right about this. There's no prison more secure, more reliable than one's own mind. You'll face consequences eventually, but none will be worse than having to live with your own judgment. I saw through her. This was a moralizing version of telling me that I better start remembering things. Yeah, I get it. Strange how everyone seems to be an expert on my amnesia. And also how no one is really helpful. That's the thing. We've been trying to remember, but no one is helping us really. She chuckled cheerfully. Great. With that crap out of the way, I've got something I wanted to ask you. How do you think the next murder is going to be committed? Better yet, do you know who's going to die? Where'd that come from? What the heck? How would I know? And how do you know there's going to be another murder? Oh, I don't believe in ghosts, but some people do. Our murderer definitely believes in a good ghost story. You heard the Ghost of Alcantra legend, right? There will be 2 more murders. Do you have evidence for that? Yes, but I'm not allowed to share that with you. Of course not. She was so secretive about some things with me. How was I supposed to help her then? Sometimes her behavior seemed so contradictory to our goals. She talked about how she didn't pay attention to legends about the supernatural, and then she says the murders must be based on them. What was up with her? I mean, as soon as you know the story, you don't have to believe in it to know that other people might believe in it, and, you know. I get where her logic comes from there, and also why she wouldn't share all the intel she has. Still. You see, Victor, I'll be straight with you. I wouldn't care about you getting your memories back if I didn't think those memories of yours would be very helpful for me. I know that. Good. Now why would I think you might know who is going to die and how? Well, interestingly enough, this little envelope was dropped off at the police station today. I want you to read it. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small little envelope. It didn't have an address on it. So someone must have dropped it off themselves. I grabbed the envelope from her. I was wary. The last couple of messages she had wanted me to see all implicated me being involved in some sin. I was guessing this was the same. To my relief, the message was far from vague. It went like this. To Scarlet Storm. He'll know. Really? Really? Oh, come on, this is really... Now I'm starting to think this is an elaborate prank that the whole town is playing on us. What a waste of paper and an envelope. I handed it back to Detective Storm. I hate to tell you this, but I don't remember what I'm supposed to know. Plus, he'll could refer to anyone. Oh, I doubt that, Victor. I doubted it too, but I had to point it out. In any case, I don't know what the message is talking about or why they would bother to send it. See, that's the really interesting thing, Victor. She had that mad gleam in her eye. It was scary how she could be so comforting and nurturing one minute and then so provocative the next. Whoever is sending these messages, and I suspect it's the murderer, really wants you to remember whatever you've forgotten. Which is funny, because presumably if you remember, you can tell us who the murderer is. I don't know who sent this or why they would want me to remember what I've forgotten. If it definitely struck me as weird. It reminded me of the message left in my wallet. Can amnesia be predicted? Detective Storm burst out laughing. You mean that thing with your wallet? Yeah, it's crazy to think they could have predicted I'd get amnesia, but why would they want me to remember then? It seems like everyone wants you to remember, Victor. She walked past me and patted me on the back. I won't push you too hard now, but let me know if you do know anything. Remember, your amnesia is probably self-caused. Think about that. What good does that do? I don't know, it's like they're all telling us to run, but we're all only running into a wall. She walked past me into the hallway, presumably getting ready to go to bed. I couldn't help shake the feeling that she already knew something about me, that everyone did. It was crazy to think that everyone in this town was playing some sort of sick joke on me. What would be the purpose in that? My amnesia is self-caused. Was she implying that I set up this whole thing? That's ridiculous. You can't just give yourself amnesia. Shaking my head at that stupid thought, I headed to bed myself. The next couple of weeks I decided to rebel and take Detective Storm's advice of not doing anything. We mostly ignored each other when we were in each other's presence. It was a dry couple of weeks. I lazed around her place and went through her VHS collection. She didn't judge me for doing so. It turns out she didn't need to. She was right. You can't run away from yourself. My subconscious must have been berating me for my lack of effort in trying to remember things, because I ended up having another nightmare. Oh goody! Like in my first nightmare, I was surrounded by darkness. Same lack of ceilings and walls, the same all-encompassing darkness, and once again there was a singular point of illumination. In that one spot of light, instead of there being a sacrificial altar, there lay a coffin about 50 meters in front from where I stood. I immediately turned around and headed in the opposite direction. I was not going to make the same mistake as last time. Nothing good could come from me going anywhere near that coffin. I would have to wake up eventually. Maybe I could avoid whatever this nightmare had in store for me. Couldn't I at least run away in my dreams? My efforts were in vain. A few steps in the opposite direction, and the coffin lay in front of me once again. I changed directions, and again the coffin stood before me. There was no sense of direction, geography, or navigation in the realm of dreams. Physics couldn't save me here. Wherever I went, there the coffin was. Not even in my dreams could I run away. I tried staying put. If I didn't move, I would never reach the coffin. But the moment I did that, the coffin began getting closer to me. It didn't move itself. It just gradually began to appear closer and closer to me. Every time I blinked and looked, it was another foot closer to me. I got the message. I resigned myself to my fate. I began making my way slowly towards the coffin. As I did so, a path illuminated itself in front of me. The world of darkness gradually took on form. I was in a church. At the front of the church, right by the altar, sat the coffin. I had heard that the composer Sergei Rachmaninov composed his most famous prelude from a nightmare he had. In the nightmare, he found himself in a church with a coffin inside it. When he looked into the coffin, he found himself in it. That would be a best-case scenario for me. At least I could be prepared for that outcome. My footsteps rang out, disturbing the peace of this place of worship. My dread grew with each footstep. When my left foot struck the ground, I remembered the ritual torture I had inflicted upon that poor woman in my previous nightmare. With the echo from my right, I remembered the messages that had been left for me. How much more of this could I take? I finally reached the coffin. I thought of the most horrible possibilities that could lay within to prepare myself, and with some effort removed the lid of the coffin. I was first greeted by the stench, the smell of something rotting. Then I saw the wreckage that lay within that coffin. It was the remains of a body, remains being an extremely generous interpretation. The body lay broken and mutilated into so many pieces that you couldn't tell what was torso and what was limb. Despite that, I was relieved. This lay well within the horrors I had prepared myself for. Then the remains spoke. "Hello." I gave a shout of shock. How could anyone be alive in that state? "Oh, I'm already dead, don't worry." "You can read minds?" "Only yours." I had no idea where the voice was coming from, since I couldn't see where the head or mouth was. I was speaking to a zombie. "Not a zombie. I'm a ghost." Yeah, why would you think zombie instead of ghost, but okay. A ghost? "Yes, I know you're looking for a ghost, but I'm sorry. I'm not the ghost you're looking for." With that, without any effort on my part, the lid returned itself onto the top of the coffin, shutting me off from the mutilated remains I had briefly spoken to. The church scene vanished, and I was back in the endless darkness. Once again, in the distance, there was a coffin. It was similarly illuminated like the one I had just opened. I knew running away or staying put was futile. I made my way towards this new coffin. Just as it had last time, the darkness changed shape into a church setting. Okay. My footsteps grew more frantic. How many more corpses was I going to have to see? Growing impatient, I rushed to the coffin and threw off the cover. There was no mangled body to greet me. This body was normal. Just a middle-aged woman who looked like she was resting peacefully. Relieved that this wasn't frightening, I jokingly said out loud, "Are you the ghost I'm looking for?" The corpse's hand suddenly shot out and grabbed my wrist. I let out a yell, and the corpse opened her eyes. Her eyes burned far too brightly for someone who was supposed to be dead. "Sorry, I will become a ghost soon, but I won't be the ghost you're looking for." She pointed her hand past the altar, and the church scene disappeared. In the distance, I could see 2 more coffins. I guess I had to go through this 2 more times. "Yes, but not now. You'll have to deal with those later." What? Oh. I guess she could read my mind too. Are you dead?" "I will be soon." "How do you know that?" "How do I know that? Because you know it, of course." "I know it?" "Yes, this has all happened before. You should know the details. You made it all happen." What did I do?" She ignored me. She pointed her hand behind me from where I had originally come running. "You remember her death, don't you? Don't feel bad about that one. You couldn't do much about it." "Her death? You mean the recent murder?" "That's right. She was brutally mutilated. The person in the first coffin must have been the first victim. Then this person, she said she was going to die soon." "And that means that—" I couldn't finish the sentence. I didn't want to say it. "That's right. I will be the next victim." Who are you? I can help you. Tell me your name, where you live. I'm staying with a detective. We can protect you." "There's nothing you can do for me now. You know that better than anyone." "What do you mean? We haven't died yet. We can still stop this." No, no you can't. I noticed she said you and not we. She looked at me sadly, but her grip around my wrist grew even tighter. Even by this point, you could have done something to stop this, but you didn't. You know better than anyone that I will die. It is already far too late. That can't be true, please. Just tell me your name. My name will do you no good, nor is it very important in this story. Only one name means anything to you. Like I said, I'm not the ghost you're looking for. I felt something in my other hand, the one not being held by her wrist. It was a small pistol. Oh no, I had been through this before. I was a killer in my last nightmare too. The cold steel of the gun grew heavy as I realized I was to be this woman's executioner. I looked at the future ghost in a panic. You know how I die, right? Shot with a gun. That's right. Now, where am I shot? How would I know? Of course you know. She was right. As I held the gun, it came back to me, as if I had done this before. In the heart. Just one shot. It was quick and easy. You probably didn't suffer at all. How did I know that? I had no idea and I didn't want to know. She gave me a kind smile. That's right. I won't suffer at all. Now then, if you please. I looked at the gun in my hands. Like in my first nightmare, I knew the woman in front of me couldn't be alive. It just wasn't right. It wasn't how things were. For better or for worse, I needed to take responsibility for what had been done. I raised the gun up. I'm sorry. Good luck finding your ghost. I pulled the trigger. The bullet nestled itself into her heart, finding its home. She died instantly, a small smile on her face. I dropped the pistol, and the lid covered the coffin on its own, just like the previous coffin. I looked towards the next coffins, but the scene had disappeared. All I saw was the wall of the bedroom Detective Storm had let me borrow. I didn't throw up this time, but I didn't get any sleep either. I stayed awake the rest of the night, trying to decipher my nightmare, wallowing deeper and deeper into my growing insanity. Had another nightmare. Victor's dreams kind of suck, don't they? They really do. They really do. So, here's the thing. Do we really know more, or is this just like our subconscious playing a trick on us now? Like, because everyone is saying, okay, you know, so in your dream it's like, okay, you know what happens. My guess is the story will go on and it really will be like that. Like, we will find a murder victim that is a middle-aged woman with a shot through her heart, is my guess. But then how do we know if it hasn't happened yet? What the fuck? This is so strange. Huh. I don't know. But yeah, let's continue for a little bit. Back in 1987, June 26th. I was becoming a growing insomniac. I couldn't sleep after my meeting with Alexandria. Giving up on rest, I grabbed a notebook near my bedside and headed over to my desk. I wanted to work through my thoughts. Could Alexandria be lying to me? I didn't think she was. Everything she told me fit nicely with reality, and I knew her well enough that I think I could tell if she was lying. Well, I thought I did anyway. If she was lying, she was the most gifted actress on the planet. That didn't stop me from worrying. I tried making a list of things that bothered me. That way, when I met with Alexandria tomorrow, I would know what I wanted to talk about. She said she would answer my questions after all. Here was my list. 1. Why did your father have a change of heart? 2. Why are you so certain that Vlad killed Marina Radic by himself? 3. Do you know about Marina Radic's tie to your family? 4. Why do you think Yena Thorne isn't your mother? 5. If Yena Thorne isn't your mother, do you know who is? 6. What are your father's future plans regarding you, and how does Vlade feel about it? 6 is a good point. Future plans, huh? Of course, the most obvious question was whether she was a part of the murder, but I didn't want to see that question in writing. I really doubted she had anything to do with the death of Marina Radek, but I still had to be careful. What had once been just a blossoming summer friendship that flirted with being a blossoming summer romance suddenly had much more at stake. I looked over my list, put down my notebook, and headed back to bed, knowing full well sleep wasn't coming to me anytime soon. I closed my eyes, hoping that tomorrow would bring me some clarity. If it didn't, I had to think of how I was going to respond to my mother berating me about fumbling another chance to produce grandchildren for her. Well, if that's your biggest problem. June 27th, 1987. I experienced déjà vu the following morning as I descended the stairs. I could hear strained whispering coming from the kitchen. My family was discussing something and didn't want me to hear. Last time this happened, bad news had followed. My heart sank. I remembered Alexandria's deduction, how she thought the killer wasn't done. This time I didn't hide at the bottom of the stairs. I walked into the kitchen and the adults all shut up as I entered. My suspicions confirmed, I made myself a cup of coffee. So, what happened? There was an expectant pause as my parents and Uncle Kyle looked at each other. There was another murder. I knew it. Right after Alexandria had told me about her family, and right before my follow-up with her. The timing couldn't have been any worse. She couldn't have planned this, could she? I had promised Alexandria I wouldn't tell anyone what she told me. I had to reconsider that promise now. Who died? Uncle Kyle grimaced. Beryl Johnson. One of the prime suspects and someone I had seen give a talk recently. That really only left the Thorns now as suspects. How did she die? Shot in the chest, probably by a small pistol. Killer broke in this time, shot the door handle. No witnesses? Nope, there wouldn't be. Beryl Johnson lived way outside of town, no neighbors within miles. Is that how Victor knew? Because it's just the same murders from back then? Just history repeating itself? Weird. That wasn't uncommon around here. Outside of town it was mostly woods and farmland. There were lots of people who lived out there and many of them didn't have neighbors. Of course, we have to consider the possibility that the murder of Marina Radek and the murder of Beryl Johnson weren't done by the same person or persons, but that's unlikely. So, does that just leave the Thorns as the main suspects? Well, I wouldn't say just leave, but yes, they were already the prime suspects, and they will continue to be our main investigative focus. Uncle Kyle frowned. But they're almost too suspicious now. What do you mean? The Thorns have to know Beryl Johnson's death would make them obviously suspicious given the tourism proposal. Do they care about the tourism proposal enough to kill Beryl Johnson? I somehow doubt that. True, based on Alexandria, it was hard to imagine the Thorns doing something that stupid. Would they do something dumb like making themselves look like the obvious culprits? My dad spoke up. Couldn't they just think they're powerful enough to get away with what they want? Maybe. It'd be terrifying if that were the case, though. Do you think someone might be framing the Thorns? I have considered the possibility. That's enough, Kyle. Howard, we don't need to talk about the details. That's for Kyle to figure out later. Yes, ma'am. Uncle Kyle went back to his coffee, and my dad went back to his food. I thought about Beryl Johnson's death. What could be the possible motive? Marina Raddick may have had a motive given the affair, but she was dead. That left the flimsy idea that the Thorns killed her because of the tourism proposal, which sounded unlikely. There had to be some connection between Marina's death and Beryl Johnson's, so what was it? Uncle Kyle finished his coffee and cracked his knuckles.
Make no mistake, even if the Thorns aren't murderers, they're involved somehow. Just a matter of getting those secrets from them.
I was hiding one of those secrets now. I looked down at the table, feeling guilty.
I don't have time to do my usual recovery. I gotta get going.
He wished us a good day and was out the door. I didn't envy him, but I didn't envy myself either. My meeting with Alexandria wasn't for a few hours, but I still had to deal with a mental stack of deciding whether or not I should tell Uncle Kyle about Alexandria.
Son, did you have any plans for today?
Yes, I had made plans with Alexandria. We're going to try and make up from a fight. Which was sort of true. My father nodded while my mother looked at me in horror.
Well, your mother and I talked about it, and we realized that it's unrealistic to just keep you locked up here.
Well, for our family it would be. For the Thorns it wouldn't.
We'd like to make a compromise with you. We know it's unlikely anything would ever happen to you, but we'd feel better if you didn't stay out late anymore. Be back before the sun sets, and we won't give you any grief.
I thought that was fair. Alexandria and I met mostly during the day anyway. Okay, Dad, I can do that. Thanks for not keeping me cooped up here. Don't thank him. You better be thanking me the way he was going on about how dangerous this place is now. He nodded.
Yep, I'd feel better if we all just sat down in the corner terrified, but I guess not everyone feels that way.
He moved to the couch to prove his point by staring in terror at the wall. Oh, Dad. Hey, Mom, does Uncle Kyle worry about us because we're related to him? I'm sure he worries a little, honey. That's one of his greatest strengths. He's always worrying. She came down to the table and sat down next to me. Are you worried? Not about getting killed, but about a lot of other things. Maybe a little. Oh, that's natural. Your father and I are very worried too. Don't worry. It's okay to worry. As long as you keep your head on straight, you'll be all right. My dad grunted assent from the couch. I appreciated the attempts at comfort. Don't you worry. If you're murdered, your father and I will avenge you. Our wrath will not be contained. Which made me laugh. Glad to hear it, Mom, but that's not worth going to jail for. She shook her head. Oh, I don't know. It might be. She got up and ruffled my hair. Be safe, and don't do anything stupid. You may be 17 now, but you'll always be our little boy. We can't stop you from living your life, but we have to worry anyway. Don't do anything stupid, huh? I wonder what the stupid option was in my case. I won't do anything stupid, Mom. Don't worry. I gave her a thumbs up and went upstairs to contemplate what I should do, given that someone had been murdered, and I now had an obligation to not do something stupid.
I mean, he's right. What is something stupid in this situation?
Oh boy. When I returned to my room, I grabbed my notebook and looked over my questions list again. What would be the non-stupid thing to do? I was definitely the wrong person to ask, but I had a heart and a brain. I might as well use both of them. There were two relevant facts. Alexandria was a member of the Thorn family, and Beryl Johnson was murdered. There were two choices that could be made. I could tell Uncle Kyle what Alexandria had told me, or I could keep my promise to Alexandria and tell no one. What could be gaining What could be gained by telling Uncle Kyle that Alexandria was a thorn? The best case scenario was that the information helped him arrest the murderer. How likely was that to happen? Probably pretty unlikely. Yeah, I mean, she didn't give us any hard evidence or something, just her opinion basically, so nothing much before. And just that whole thing again of keeping her locked up and her assuming that he murdered her mother. Again, no hard evidence. So I don't think it would be helpful. If she was a part of the murders, she wasn't going to get interviewed by him because the Thorns wouldn't allow Uncle Kyle to get an interview. Even if he did get an interview, she wasn't going to tell him anything. If she wasn't a part of the murders, then her testimony alone wasn't going to get Vlad or Elga arrested because of how powerful they were. Why would Alexandria ask me to keep her identity a secret, and what was to be gained from keeping my promise? If her conjectures were correct, both her father and brother were murderers, her father having killed his wife and her brother having killed Marina Raddick and Beryl Johnson. The most probable reason she wanted her identity kept secret was that she'd be in danger if it was found out. It was a legitimate possibility that if the news was to get out, they might try to kill Alexandria to keep it a secret. Additionally, there was my own safety to consider. Alexandria did say she was putting both of us in danger by telling me her identity. That was what my brain said. What did my heart say? From the beginning, my heart had said the same thing. I believed Alexandria was telling the truth, and if so, then she was putting herself out there to make her first true friend. She displayed vulnerability to a guy she had known for 2 weeks so that our relationship wasn't built on falsehoods. She had asked for that guy to keep a promise. What kind of asshole would I be if I broke that promise? Yeah, like really, telling her secret would put her in danger either way, whether it was true or not. Because the thing that seems to be like that we're assuming is really real, that she is a thorn and she was kept hidden, obviously. So even if they didn't try to kill her, they probably wouldn't let, I don't know, either wouldn't let her leave or would kick her out, which is also not great. Like, she cannot be jeopardizing her home. Maybe that's thinking too far. I was the one who believed that people were good for each other, that we should learn each other's stories. I introduced Alexandria to this world, and I couldn't betray her trust. I laughed to myself. It really was that simple. I could rationalize all I want, but there had only ever been one option for me. All that contemplation about likelihoods and possibilities, and the swaying factor for me was that I couldn't possibly break her heart. I walked over to my mirror and took a look at myself. The guy looking back didn't seem like such a bad guy. I wanted that to be true. I gave a smile and a nod to my reflection and began to head out. All that being said, there were still things I wanted to confirm, and I knew the place to get answers. In middle school social science class, we had a guest come in and give a talk about some of the local history of Alcantra. Her name was Elaine Weatherton. She was a professor at the local university here. She wasn't that old, in her 50s, I think, but she had sort of earned herself the title of town elder because of her knowledge about the history and stories of Alcantra. It wasn't even noon yet. I still had plenty of time before my meeting with Alexandria and could pay a visit to this town elder. Alexandria told me a lot about the Thorne family, and I could probably confirm what she said with Mrs. Weatherton's knowledge. If Mrs. Weatherton got suspicious, I could just play dumb. I'm pretty good at playing dumb, because I am dumb. Sound logic? I hopped down the stairs and was out the door. Elder Weatherton lived on the outskirts of town to the east, so I had quite a ways to go. That's how we're slowly linking the two timelines together, eh? I mean, we have kind of with the murders and the ghost stories so far, but with actual people now, that's where it gets interesting. But is she also going to speak in riddles to us? I grabbed my bike and headed over. After 15 minutes, I pulled into the neighborhood she lived in. The place stood out because of all the Halloween ornaments and decorations. Did she ever put them away? I guess every day is Halloween if you believe hard enough. It certainly gave the place a witchy feel to it. A little nervous now, I went over and knocked on the door. From what I remembered of her in middle school, she seemed nice, but everyone is nice around the teachers. It's the residual PTSD from being scared of getting in trouble. Who knows what she'd be like in a natural element? Maybe she'd turn me into a lizard. The door opened and Elder Weatherton poked her head out. "Yes, you're Nick Fox, right? Anything I can do for you?" It looked like she wasn't going to cast spells on me. "Hi, Mrs. Weatherton. Sorry to come unannounced. Hope I'm not bothering you. Actually, I stopped by because I was wondering if you could tell me about Alcantra and the Thorns. I'm interested in, history." Which wasn't true at all. I expected some suspicion, but her eyes brightened up. Of course. Happy to see young people interested in Alcantra's history. Come in. You know, I've been half expecting your uncle to stop by and ask me stuff. Figured he'd want to know all about Alcantra, given the investigation." "You make sure to tell your uncle what I tell you." "Yes, ma'am, I'd be happy to." That sounds good, but I'm reserving my doubts. She ushered me into the kitchen, where she insisted on serving me some tea. Her house was filled with books, though the books themselves were scattered all across the house. A real fanatic for sure. She pushed a cup of tea towards me. "Now, what would you like to know?" "How about we start with the original Thorns, Alistair and Alcantra?" I figured by starting at the top, I could probably hear if what Alexandria said about the succession rule for the family was true. She nodded her head and launched into the stuff I already knew, but soon she started adding details I didn't know. Well, Alcantra was actually murdered. She and Alistair were attacked, and Alistair barely survived. Of course, you already know the rest of that story. Alistair attributed his survival to Alcantra convincing him to live on the edge of the afterlife. He survived and renamed the town after her, and then established a summer festival to remember her. I hadn't known Alcantra was murdered. This town had more of a history with murder than I thought. But tragedy wasn't done with Alistair. You see, he had 3 kids with Alcantra, and there was a fight over the succession. Alistair wanted the middle son to take over, and the other sons objected. Alistair kicked the other 2 kids out of the family, and the middle son succeeded him. He then made a rule for the family that the Thorns are only to have 1 kid, so there is a clear line of succession. Not many people know, but there's a public document of intent at City Hall. I don't think many people care. It's not like it's an enforceable rule, but as far as I know, the family has followed it. I nodded, doing my best to act like this was new information. I was relieved that it looked like Alexandria was telling the truth. Elder Weatherton started going on about the other heads and how they transitioned from copper mining to logging, but I wasn't interested in that. I decided I should try to steer the conversation to more helpful angles for myself. "Do you know anything about Yena Thorn? I haven't heard much about her." "Yena Thorn? I can't say too much about her. She didn't leave the mansion very much. When she did, she was downright unsociable, looked down on everyone. Nobody really liked her, including her husband. It was an arranged marriage. Yena's family was a big deal from somewhere in Illinois. She and Elga were never on good terms. I guess Elga Thorn had some experience locking up women in the mansion."
She died a while back, right?
Yes, she died in 1969. Her personal doctor said she died of complications from illness. 1969 was the year Alexandria was born. That tracks with what she told me. Now to ask the leading question. Excuse me if this is a rude question, but did anyone ever consider whether or not Alga murdered his wife? You know, on account of him not liking her very much. I'm guessing it would have been poison, based on what the doctor said. I braced myself in case she got mad, but she just chuckled. Actually, Mr. Fox, a lot of people did. Lots of people gossiped about it. She had always been rather sickly, so there was no investigation, but it wouldn't have surprised me if Alga had her poisoned. Her private doctor was paid for by Alga, so it would have been very easy for him to do it and get away with it. I shouldn't have been relieved by the realistic possibility of someone being murdered, but I was. I was quite certain Alexandria was not trying to deceive me. Her story seemed to be reality. Did anyone happen to see if anything was off about Yina beforehand? She paused. I saw her, actually. I didn't notice anything different about her, though she was coughing. That might have been the opportunity Alga was waiting for, but it wouldn't surprise me if she just died. She always looked like a good flu might finish her off. Okay, no mention of her being pregnant, so Alexandria was probably right that Yina wasn't her mother. Alga probably took advantage of her cold to poison her. I guess he really loved the woman he was having an affair with if he wanted to raise their child. Why didn't he just marry Alexandria's mother after Yina died? Presumably the reason he killed Yina was to marry Alexandria's mother. Must have been some reason he couldn't and had to hide Alexandria to cover up his infidelity. So far so good. Just one last thing to ask. Marina Radek used to work for the Thorns, right? Any insight on that? Yes, she used to be a maid for them. The Thorns have a lot of staff. The majority of them are born into their positions, family business sort of thing. The Thorns want loyalty. Marina was different. She was hired. You can usually see the staff in town from time to time, but Marina was hardly seen during her tenure with the Thorns. She left shortly after Vlad was born. Was it unusual for Mrs. Radek to leave the Thorns? Did previous staff members ever leave? She thought about it. It wasn't unusual at the time, though she's the only one I can remember that didn't leave town too. Staff left, but usually because they left Alcantra. Marina was the only one I could think of that was born here, went to work for the Thorns, left, and stayed here. But now that you mention it, I can't remember the last time a staff member left the Thorns since Marina left. That would track with Alexandria's presence in the mansion. Alga couldn't risk the staff leaking her existence. Elder Weatherton frowned thoughtfully. I wonder why Marina rarely left the mansion during her time there. That's the suspicious thing. She pointed at me. You tell your uncle to look into why Elga would want to lock up Marina. Something fishy going on there. I can feel it. She was right that something fishy was going on. Alexandria's theory was that Marina knew something about the family, and then she was killed impulsively when Vlad met with her to find out what she knew. But she left shortly after he was born. Perhaps Vlad killed her on behalf of his father. It seemed like Elga was the one with things to hide. I had gotten what I wanted out of this conversation. I stood up and thanked Elder Weatherton. You bet, Mr. Fox. You come by any time you want to know anything about Alcantra. I'm the expert around here. I promised her I would, and that I would tell Uncle Kyle about what she told me. And if you hear any good stories, you let me know about them, Mr. Fox. Well, I think I have a pretty good story, but you'll have to wait to hear it, Miss Elaine Weatherton. Okay, I'm going to leave it here for today. I don't know. It's like we didn't learn too much. Like the puzzle pieces are slowly coming together, but still very, very strange, especially now with Victor. Again, like, do the murders just happen the same way that they did 10 years ago, and that's why we kind of subconsciously know what's going to happen, or what? It's all very, very strange, but I guess it's, yeah, there's nothing much we can theorize about. Like, not more than I already said. So, yeah. That's it from me for today. As always, I'd appreciate if you'd let me know your thoughts in the comments. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, bye bye.